Yeah, okay. And what about Divya? Oh, sorry, I mean Sheetal.
No, Sumitra, I didn't do. I said, no, it's my first session.
Okay, okay. Then it was Divya. Okay, what about Divya? Divya, am I audible? Divya?
Yes, we can hear you. I think he did not connect
Okay.
with audio.
Okay. And Radhika, what about you?
I did it.
Okay. Right. So, yeah, coming back to Sheetal. Yeah, Sheetal. So let me just quickly give you an introduction of what we covered yesterday. My screen is visible now. And
Yes.
let me just open this one.
So you record every session, right, Sumitra?
Yeah, I don't do. I think maybe the host starts the recording.
Okay. Yeah, means I'll go through yesterday's recording also once.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what we did yesterday. So we covered basic HTML tags. So we talked about what is a p tag, div tag, span tag, heading, center, ULLI, image tag, nav tag, anchor, strong, table, buttons, input, and text area. So
Okay,
you
good.
can
Yeah,
see, and
yeah,
each
I
of
have
the
the
tags.
idea of these things. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, but I asked to create that blog because we will be starting with CSS today. So we will
Okay.
essentially link with it and then we'll start editing it. Anyway, so can Sadhika present your work, like what you did?
Sure, Sumandra. Yeah. Can you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
So when I was trying to add an image, it is not opening. So I was working on this one. This part.
Yeah, it may be not opening because it may not be like accessible. Yeah, sometimes they basically block access to like because it's Shutterstock, right? So they charge money for their images. So you can use
Oh,
any other image if that is not working.
okay.
Yeah. Can you save this and run this to see the output?
Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah, I can see your code right now.
Oh, okay. Just a minute. Now are you able to view the screen?
No, I still can't see the output, like the browser.
Okay, I'll do that again. Okay. Isha. నేను ఇది ఏం చేయలేదు.
Yeah, I mean, there were some. Yeah, I can see the screen. There were some more things like I think I told you about strengths and
Weaknesses. Yeah, I didn't do that. I was only looking at the image part.
Okay, can you go back to your code?
Sure. So I was writing span here and here. to highlight this, but
No, the span does not highlight anything, right? It's more like an inline container for text.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, just one mistake. Give me the remote control.
Okay.
So you have the title, you have the heading, and after the headings, this is like more like your introduction. So maybe you can keep it within a div tag.
Div tag, okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's the only thing that I wanted to point out here. The rest of the thing is fine. And okay, now you can stop sharing your screen and
I also
can,
want to, I also
yeah.
want you to tell me where should I use span exactly? I was a little confused on that.
Okay, so span is more like an inline container for a text. Let's say that you wanted to let's say that you have a, how can I say, let's say you want you want to write a list of novels, or maybe you write, let's say I read novels, and then you kind of write I particularly really like something.
Okay.
So this something should be like, as a rule of thumb, can be taken inside a span tag.
Yeah, so I was trying the same thing with the novels word, right?
Sorry, where?
For the novels in
The
front of
novels.
novels.
Okay. Yeah, you wanted to do it within the span tag, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you wanted to see like whether it's getting highlighted or not, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So span tag does not highlight anything, right? That is a strong tag. Like you have
I
it.
mean, okay. I was trying to use span tag for novels and see what was happening there.
Mhm. Yeah, so nothing will happen. Just like if you use a paragraph, okay, or if you use a normal text, right, that will the only thing that will be there. It won't like do anything. It's more like a kind of an identifier, special kind of an identifier for your text.
Okay.
You use it in your CSS. We will see it today.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay, you can stop sharing now and we can move to Radhika or Divya, anyone.
Somendra, I was attending from my university system. Can I share it later?
Okay, no issues. But for today, you require that blog because, okay, fine, you can see the recording and later on try it out. Yeah, who was that? Was that Divya or Radhika?
Radhika, I will share by
No.
end of the day. End of this one.
Okay, no issues. And Divya, can you present yours?
బావా ఆ కాదు వాష్రూమ్ లో ఉన్నారు ఆ సౌండ్ ఏంది ఎయిర్పోర్ట్ రావాలా
Divya, are you there? Okay, I think Divya. Okay, anyways, so let's start with today's session. Today we will do a brief introduction about CSS. So let's take, yeah. So today we will cover mostly the basics of CSS. Then tomorrow we will see how to use some advanced features like pseudo selectors. And then we will do a little bit of media queries and others. And on the third day, we will try to use Flexbox and a little bit of Bootstrap. Okay, so this is these are like mostly the three areas that we are going to cover. I think Satish yesterday mentioned mostly these three areas. So that's what we are going to cover. So I think more or less you have a basic understanding of what CSS is, right? So stands for Cascading Style Sheet. Okay, and why it's called cascading, we will come to know in a short while. Okay, what it is used to is it's used to define some styles to your existing HTML element. If you see the kind of page that we have right now, like this one, it's quite basic. Okay, here you have the explanation of all the different types of tags we created yesterday, and it works on this code that we wrote yesterday. So this code is very basic, like in the sense that it only contains HTML tags, and whatever comes with those whatever kind of small styles that comes with those HTML tags, for example, the size of the headings, or the when you give a paragraph, there's some difference in the lines, etc. So all those basic things only gets covered with what we did with HTML yesterday. So basically this is a very like simple page, and we want to style it all together, like to make it look more better to a end user. Now, I will be showing you how to use CSS and what are the different styles that we use in CSS by word, but I won't be overall styling this page. So styling this page will be upon you, like whatever styles you want. Once you know how to use the CSS, you can use any styles that you want. So that is something that will be your kind of assessment, or whatever you can call it, practice or something. Okay, but today what we are going to learn is how to essentially use these how to use the CSS, and how to start working on it, and what are the different selectors, and how CSS essentially works. So so let's get started. The first thing is how to use the CSS. So let's get back to our code first. So there are three ways in which you can associate your your this thing. I mean, yeah, there are three ways in which you can associate your CSS file into this particular HTML page. So the three ways are essentially called, one is an external CSS, like you can associate an external CSS file to your HTML. One is internal CSS, which is like you can internally use something called a style tag. Okay, you can use the style tag also if you want. And the third thing is like, if you go to head, here you can write style, and here you can write the CSS that you want to use. This is called inline styling. And this is one way, and the other one, third one is like so the third one is the inline style, where you essentially with the tag you pass in an attribute where you define what style you want to give. Like you can write it like the style equals to, you can write maybe color, and you can write it as blue. Sorry. Yeah, something like this. So this is called an inline style. Or if you are using the style tag here, then that will be the internal style sheet. And if you are using an external style sheet, then that will be called an external CSS. Now, the thing is like, now you will get to know like why it's called cascading, because if you use all three together, like if you use external sheets also, internal sheets also, and inline styles also, which is generally the case, like in most of the modern applications, you will see that most of the times you will sometimes see the use of inline style. Sometimes you will see that within the style tag only they are doing some CSS, or sometimes you will see, but most of the times you will see that there is a separate external style sheet, but all three are like mostly used all together. So the question is like, let's say I defined some kind of style for this h1 tag. Now in the inline style, I gave it some style, like style equals to something. Okay, then in the internal style sheet also I gave something like I want to style this h1 tag in some way. And then in the external sheet also I define the style. So which style gets applied? Okay, the hierarchy is that the inline style, whatever you define within the attribute gets applied. Then whatever you have defined within the internal style sheet, like within the style tag gets applied. And then whatever is defined in the external style sheet that gets applied. So now you see this cascading effect of how the styles are getting applied. That's why it's called a cascading style sheet. Okay, so let's start with
Sorry
CSS.
to
What we
interrupt. I just had a question.
yeah.
So like you said, suppose inline, internal and external for same heading, if we give the color attribute, then which color will be displayed? The one given external or the first one?
Sorry, you're not audible. I think what you're asking is like, if I give some color to the H1 heading, then which color will be visible? Like the one that we applied in the external CSS or the one that we apply here? Is that the question?
Yeah, means for inline H1, if we gave in inline also, and for external also, internal also
Mhm.
for same H1,
Yeah.
then
So
which color will be displayed?
the first thing, the priority that will be taken is your inline style. The first color that gets applied is whatever you define in your inline style tag. Okay, then your internal, like if you define something within your internal style sheet, then that gets applied. And then if that is not there, then the external style sheet, whatever style is defined there, that gets applied. So the hierarchy is first inline, then internal, then external.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start first with, but generally remember that using inline styles is not correct. Okay, and sometimes your code may get rejected because you have used inline styles. It's not a correct way to add CSS. Only like, let's say that you're trying to design something and somehow some style is not getting applied. Okay, then in that case you can you kind of use the inline style in a way to force the tag to behave in a certain way. Okay, but generally, because it's more like a design thing, and when you are designing web pages, you want the different sections of the page, the design of the different sections of the page to be consistent across all the pages. That's why the rule of thumb is to essentially use the external CSS and try to define styles there. Only if you have like a very special use case within an HTML document where a certain tag, where a certain tag is going to be like uniquely identified, or it has a kind of a unique identity in a way that that tag is not used somewhere, not the tag, I mean the content or the overall thing is not used anywhere else in any other document, then maybe you can apply the inline style. But generally you should avoid using the inline style because it creates issues. It creates not issues in like, it's not like you will not get the output, you will get the output. Okay, but it's incorrect in terms of the overall design to essentially apply inline styles to a certain tag. Okay, so let's associate a CSS to this and see how this goes. Okay, no. So let's save this one and we create a CSS out of it now. Oops. So we create a sheet called style sheet dot CSS. Okay, so this is my CSS style sheet, and in this, okay, let me define something. Div border one solid. Right. So this is just for our testing purposes. Let's kind of integrate or associate this style sheet with our page. So what you have to do is you have to use this link tag. So in link tag, you have to define what you are trying to link. In our case, it's going to be our style sheet. And the second thing is you have to provide the reference to where the style sheet is. Like for our case, it's style sheet .css. And that's all. Okay. So let's see if this works. Yeah. So now you see that you have this red colored box for each div. So yesterday, if you remember in my, when I was giving you the session on HTML, I told you that we are using the div tag right now. You won't be able to understand, like I told you that it creates sections in the HTML page, but you won't be able to see those sections. When I'll do CSS tomorrow, you'll be able to see those sections. So today you can see, right, the div tag, the red colored box that you see here, and this is essentially what I was trying to refer to. So these are the sections that you have created using the div tag. So using the div tag, you have clearly defined that, okay, fine, this particular space in the web page is for center tag, this particular space is for the UL tag, this is for the image tag, and all so on and so forth. So this red color thing is happening because we have defined it in here in our style sheet. I'll tell you like what this is, but let's start with very simple. The first thing of how our style sheets work, first let's remove this one, is like it works through selectors. So selectors are essentially some identifier through which you can select an HTML element. A selector can be a many thing. You can directly reference a tag. Okay, you can uniquely identify an element using something called a class or something called an ID. So class is essentially used to uniquely identify a group of HTML elements, while an ID is essentially used to identify more like a specific kind of an element within the HTML document. So I'll give you examples for both. So first, let's say that for each of the H2 tag, like all the headings in our HTML page, okay, they should be of what color can we give? Let's say they should be of yellow color. Okay. So the first thing that we do in our CSS is we are trying to select all the all the H2 elements, right? Because our headers are of H2. So we select all the H2 elements. And now what we want to do is we want to apply the color yellow to it. Okay. So if I save this and if I come here, see all the headings became yellow in color. Okay. You might be wondering, like, this is also heading, why this is not in yellow? Because this was defined as H1, not as H2. This was H2. So we defined it for H2 and not for H1. That's why. So this doesn't look good. Maybe we can give red. So yeah, this looks good. So this is how essentially CSS works. So what you do in CSS is you select an element, then you apply some styles over it. Okay, so this is like one style. We can also apply, let's say, font. Okay, we can give a certain font to it. Let's say Arial font. Okay, and so whatever you want, let's say font size. Yeah, font family you can give. Okay, font size you can give. Maybe I can give like 24 pixels, something like that. Okay, now you see that there's a change in how it appears, your headings, right? So this is because we have given a certain font to it. We have defined font. Now here you will see Courier, New, Courier, and Monospace. All of them are fonts, but they are separated by commas. I'll tell you about this. So these are like fallback fonts. I'll talk about this. Is more like an advanced topic. I'll talk about it later. Okay, but for the time being, what you need to know is like we applied a certain font. Okay, we changed the size of the heading to 24 pixels and we gave it a color red. So this is like on a very basic level how CSS works. You can, in a similar way, style the other components of your web page also. Let's say that I want the p tag. Okay, so all these, okay, so there was this question about span tag and it was not getting highlighted. So let's search where the span is here. So we have used one span tag here and there's another span tag here. Okay, so we removed the strong from here. This is not required. Now, what I want to do is like, so as you remember, I said that span is more like an internal container to a text. And therefore, if we want something to be kind of uniquely identified, then in that case, we can use a span, right? So what we will do is that what we want is that this font, the span, whatever text is there in the span, it should come with a different color maybe, and it should come with a different font size, and it can come with a different, whatever. So we first use the span. Okay, in that way we select the span tag, and then we maybe make the color as blue. Okay, and then we change the font size to 40 pixels. Okay, and we change the font to weight to bold. Okay. Now if you come here, and if you see now this all the span tag, wherever we have used the span tag, you can see the style got applied, right? So this is how, so 40 pixels is a bit large. Maybe we can use 20 pixels or maybe 16 pixels for the time being. Yeah. So now you can see that wherever there's a span tag used, okay, you have a different kind of, it's appearing in a very different way in comparison to others, right? And this is like why I was saying that, if you use span as an internal container, then it helps you to make very consistent designs, because in that way, using the span tag, you can identify that a certain element has to have a different style in comparison to others. Okay, so let's go through some of the very basic, kind of styles that you can apply. So let's talk about, we will talk about, borders, we will talk about margins, we will talk about padding and stuff. Okay, so let's say, yeah, so let's bring back our div, like whatever we did to our div tag. Color, yeah, we want this for our div to be visible, like the tags to be visible. Okay, what happened? Okay, I wrote color, should be border. Yeah. So now let's start with CSS. So one thing that you will very often use when designing CSS is the dev tools. Okay, so how do you open dev tools within an HTML? What you do is you do a right click, then you click on inspect. Okay, and then you get the elements. So in here you can see on the right side, you can see the styles that are applied to your particular element. For example, for to H1, these styles have got applied. Okay, and similarly, you can see like some other, if you want to apply some other styles to it, you can also do it from here, and in that way you can kind of apply style right away, and you can test. So this is very handy because otherwise what you have to do is like you have to come to the style sheet, then change, then reload and see if, if the style got applied or not. So the DevTools is very handy because it gives you a very easy way to, quickly test the styles that are getting applied to your HTML page. So let's start with, let's start with margin, and maybe let's start with padding first. Oh no, I forgot to tell you about IDs and classes. Okay, so we will talk about that first, and then we will talk about other things. So as I said that, for selecting any HTML element from a document, there are like different ways. First thing you can use is simply the selector. Okay, but this is not always cool. Let me give you an example. We have the image tag, nav tag. Let's say the image, nav, and anchor. Yeah. So the image tag, the nav tag, and the anchor tag. Okay, all these three tags are used to create the nav bar that I was talking about in my last lecture, right? So you may like find a use case where you want to apply similar kind of styles to image, nav, and anchor tag, which maybe the styles may be different from the rest of them. Okay, so what you can do is you come back to your HTML page and find out where this image tag is. I mean, so this image tag, yeah, this one. So let's say you define class equals to nav header. Okay, and now since I say nav tag also used for this purpose, so we also define it here. And I said anchor tag is also used for creating navigation bars, so you can also apply it here also. So what this does is that it groups together this. Okay, let me, yeah, this, and this. So it groups together all these three. Okay, now what you can do is that although this h2 belongs in a different div, this h2 belongs in a different div, this h2 belongs in a different div, but since you have applied the same class to each of these elements, it groups together all these h tags and essentially applies the same kind of style across. So now the question is how you can use this class that you have defined here, and how you can apply the CSS to this. So you come back to the style sheet, and if you want to access a certain class, then you always have to use a dot. You use a dot and then you give the class name like navbar. Okay, and then let's say I want it to be of color blue, and I don't want the font family to be Korean, I want the font family to be, I just want the font weight to be, let's say, bold. Not much of a thing. Okay, now if I save it, now we come back and now we kind of reload this. Image tag, nav tag, anchor tag. Okay, let's say the style didn't get applied.
I think class name is different, Somendra. Nav header.
Sorry, come again.
Yeah, I think class name is different, right? Nav header.
Nav header.
And,
Oh, what have we given there? Nav bar. Oh, okay. Yeah, good observation, Alok.
yes.
So now you see that the image tag, the nav tag, and the anchor tag, all of them are kind of having a very different style from the rest of them, where you have the red color and you have the font as family new. So even though if you see your HTML document, you will see that this h2 belongs in different div, this is in different div, and this is in different div. But using class, you have grouped together the headings for all these three. And that's why a similar kind of style gets applied across all the HTML elements which are using this nav header class. Okay, now that is how, in a very basic level, how the class works. Now let me give an example of how an ID works. So when creating a nav bar, I mean, the image tag is important, the anchor tag is important, but at the root of everything, you will have the nav tag. So maybe I want to specially highlight this nav tag, okay, in here. So what I do is that instead of giving it a class, I give it an ID. And maybe I give it a name, nav tag. Okay, so now if you go to style sheet, and now if you want to access that particular element which is having that ID, you have to use a hash. If it is having an ID, then use a hash. If you are trying to access a class, then use a dot. Okay, so we give it a nav tag, and we, let's say, give it the color red we are already using. So we give it some other color. Yeah, I forgot to tell you about hex code. I'll tell you about it right now. What color can we give? Red, blue, okay, green. So I am now giving this a green color. We come back here. So now you see this nav tag is green in color, right? So this green color does not get applied to anywhere else. It only gets applied to this nav tag, right? Now, so, and that's how, because I uniquely identified this nav tag and giving it a green color. So at this point of time, you may have a question like, okay, fine. So if through the class, we are kind of grouping together many different, tags together and applying the same style across all the stacks, which are tagged under the same class. And with the ID, we are also doing like uniquely identifying this thing. So can we like replace can we replace this class with ID? And this class also with ID, and then I use this green color. Yeah, let me do it instead to show you. Nav tag, and we also change this to nav tag, change this to ID. Maybe, yeah. So if I apply the same ID, and now if I reload this, you will see that the image tag also became green. The anchor tag also became green. So at this point of time, you may think, well, okay, the ID tag works more like a class, right? So what you can do with class, you can also do with ID. Then what is the purpose of having class different and ID different when both are used to kind of group together different HTML tags? Okay, so the answer is again lies with the use case. Okay, so class, as the name suggests, is used to bring together different attributes, different tags, and apply the same style across all of them. And an ID, although it does the same thing as that of a class, which is to apply uniquely identify elements and kind of apply styles across it, but the use case for this is to uniquely identify an element. If you do something like this, like if you give ID here, and ID here, then the code will work, but it will get rejected at the time of review. When some other developer will review it, he will simply reject it, because you with ID, we generally try to identify something which is unique. You are using your code is working, but you are using ID in a very wrong way. Okay, that's why you use class here and not the ID. Okay, I think that makes sense to everyone. If you guys have any question, you can come back right now related to class IDs and general selectors in CSS. Anyone? I mean, Divya,
Good,
Sheetal,
Soumya.
Sadhika.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so we are good now. So we start with some other things, like let's discuss about padding. Let's discuss about other things like fonts and icons. You already have seen how we use fonts, font family, font size, etc. I mean, there are very many different kind of attributes you can apply to a certain tag, and covering all of them is not possible. So what you can do is, like, you can when you're working on your own, doing the self-study, at that point of time you can Google Or if you're using an IDE, then you can also get all the recommendations here, like font feature settings, font stretch, okay, anything. You can apply any kind of, attribute to your, or a style to your particular tag, and see how it goes. Okay. So it is more like a style, more like, apply and see kind of a thing. But what I'll be covering is like some of the styles that we most commonly use, like for example, color, border, font, weights, and then you have height, widths, and then you have paddings, margins, and all those things. These are like most commonly used. And there are other tags, some special kind of styles that you can also Google and you can find it out. Okay, let's start with padding. So what is padding exactly? Let's come to our dev tools. Okay. So earlier they used to show us, okay, now they don't show. Okay, fine. Oh yeah, here it is. So say this, what element is selected right now? Let's select our div tag. Let's select this div. And now bring up this. And now you see this box very carefully. Okay, so this box explains to you what padding is, what border is, and what margin is. Okay, so let's say that you have this div tag. Okay, the distance between your element and the border of it is what we call padding, and the distance between your border and your defined margin is what we define using the margin style, like we provided some value. Okay, so this outer area is what we call margin, and this inner area is what we call padding. Okay, this makes sense, right? Sometimes people get confused with padding and margin. Yeah, sometimes some kind of effect you're trying to execute and you apply some padding, and then it also works. Okay, sometimes you use margin and then the developer comes back saying that no, use a padding there. So in order to avoid those kind of mistakes, you have to like be very clear about what a margin is and what a padding is. Okay, so we will take a certain div tag and I'll show you
No,
how it
Mahendra, one
works.
question.
Yeah.
So if suppose there is no border displayed there, suppose the border is not mentioned in CSS, and they asked us to have a space above the text. Suppose a field is there with username, so we want a space above the username. So then we will use margin or padding.
So your question, like, see, the border that we are doing here, right? So this border is already there. What I'm only doing here is that I'm giving it a 1 pixel line, and I'm giving it a red color so that it's visible to you. Okay. So if I don't give this, it may not be visible to you, but it doesn't mean that the border does not exist.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. I thought the without border. Okay, yeah, I got it.
Okay, so let's give some padding and let's give some margin and see what happens. So let's take a certain div tag. Okay. Let's give it some ID. Right now, since we are working with just one div tag, we'll give some ID to it. Let's say tutorial. And we come back. Okay. So what was this tag about? Nav tag. Okay, this is about nav. So we come back to our page and let's have a very close look at the nav tag. Okay, we can see the border, we can see the difference in the borders, and yeah. So what we are going to, so padding can be applied, when you see this box here, you can understand that padding can be applied in 4 directions. Like one is the left, like what kind of distance you want to keep to the left, how much distance you want to keep to the right, how much distance you want to keep to the top, and how much distance you want to keep to the bottom of it. So there are four kind of padding attributes. One is padding top, padding right, padding bottom, and padding left. And if you want, generally, the developers, they use a kind of a shortcut when they want to apply. They don't have to okay, let me just show you first. Let's come back here and let's give one by one first. So we give padding top first. Maybe, I'll give a large padding so you guys can actually see the difference. Padding top, and we give the same 20 pixels to in all directions. Padding bottom, padding left, padding right. Okay. So let's come back to our nav tag and see what happens. So you see this, the upper, the lower, now there's more space between them. So, and if you inspect here, you right click here and then you click on inspect, then you'll see the styles that got applied here, the padding top, padding left. Now this is where this dev tool is handy. So if you remove the padding top, what happens? See, the nav tab goes up, right? Similarly, if you remove the padding, let's say bottom, then the about us will be closer to the border. So if you remove padding left, it goes to the left. If you remove padding right, so padding right is not because this is aligned to the left, that's why this is not applied. Okay, but if it's aligned to the right, at that point of time, padding right will work the way padding left works right now. Okay, now if you don't want to give padding in this way, one shortcut way to give it is like this. Padding, and it will 20, let's say 20 pixel, 20 pixel, 20 pixels, 20 pixel. So that's another way to give the padding. If you come back here, if you reload it, you'll see that the same thing gets applied. So this is like one shortcut technique. You can directly give padding, padding to the top, padding bottom, padding left, and padding right. So you can apply it this way, or if you want to apply specifically in a certain direction, then you can also use this padding hyphen, whatever, left, right, top, bottom, and all those things. And there are other paddings also, like you can see in the recommendation, padding block and block start and all those things. We will talk about them when we will be doing Flexbox. At that point of time, I'll tell you what these are. But for the time being, in a very simple manner, this is what padding is. Now, let's talk about margins a little bit. So the margin is very similar to padding itself. Okay. Maybe even if I kind of apply the margin, you may not feel that much of a difference, but I'll try to explain how it's different from padding. Like you already might have seen the difference here when I showed you the box, how the padding is different from the margin. Okay, but let me just give it. So again, margin is like top, bottom, left, and right. Okay, so let's start with top. Let's give it like 100 pixels. Margin, bottom, 100 pixels. Margin left, 100 pixels. And margin right, 100 pixels. Okay, so if I come back to my page, if I reload it, see what happened. Okay, so this is what happened is your margins got applied. Okay, let me just open the the inspect. Yeah, one thing I want to do is I want this padding to be like padding top, padding bottom, because I will be able to remove these styles and then show it to you like how it's working. Otherwise, I have to edit it and then I have to write something. Instead of that, I can click and do the click checkbox, and from there I can remove the styles. Left, right, top, and bottom. Okay, let's come back here, reload this, and now let's inspect. Come to the inspect. We are talking about the nav tag here, so we will select that particular attribute. This one. Now we come to this, what CSS is got applied to it. Now you see, if you click on padding, if you remove the padding top, it only affects how the nav tag behaves within the border, right? But if you remove the margin top, then you see the entire box goes up. Now you understand the difference between padding and margin, right? Similarly, if you do it for, let's say, the left side of it, if you remove padding left, then this text essentially, sticks to the left of the border. Okay, but it stays like it's kind of, the style is applied in reference to how it is behaving within the box only, not outside the box. But if you remove margin left, then the entire box goes to the left. Okay, this is not related to what happens within the box. This is kind of outside the box, because you can see it from here. So you can see this padding 20 pixels we have applied, and this border 100 pixels we have applied. Okay, so this, if you like hover here, you can see where the border is. And if you hover here, you can see where the padding is. Okay, so this is the basic difference between padding and margin. Do you have any questions for this? Yeah, I am
No,
taking
sir.
it as a no. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
No, I said no.
Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, so there are some other things also. Okay, let's give you something about backgrounds. Tell you something about backgrounds. You can, so in a page, we generally in HTML pages, we generally work with background. So if you see some page, you will see that in the background, sometimes there's a picture, sometimes there's some kind of video playing, sometimes there's some kind of, some kind of media getting displayed, more like animation or stuff. Okay, so how do you like apply these things? So for that, you have to apply the background. And the question is, in which tag we should apply the background. Okay, obviously it should be within the body tag, right? Because if you want to apply some background within a certain div tag, for example, within this tutorial div tag, you can also do that. But generally, let's say if for the time being we want to apply a certain background color to this entire HTML page, although it won't look good, but we'll still, for the purpose, we'll try to apply. So what we do is we give it a background, and you can see all the recommendations coming here. So we give it a background color of whatever, maybe this aquamarine. And we come back here and we do this. So this is how the background gets applied. Okay. Now let's say that I want to give our nav tag a certain different color. Okay. Background. So you can write here background color, and maybe give it a very light color. If you reload this, you will see that within the nav tag, here. So within the nav tag, you can see that some color got applied, which is different from the other colors, because you have used a background color of different background color for the body and a different background color for your particular div. Similar to the background color, you can also apply like background image. Okay. And based on the background image, you have certain properties. So when you give the background image, at that point of time, you have to give it some URL from where you can access this image. Okay. If it's on your local machine, then you have to give the path to that particular image. And based on the background image, you have this other properties. For example, background position, you have background repeat, Say for example, if your image is small and if you apply background image as your image, then in order to kind of make the preserve the quality of the image, it will kind of start repeating the image across the page. So you can at that point of time, if you want the image to be visible across the entire page without having to worry about breaking or preserving the quality of the image, then you can use the background repeat and make it as none. So, or no repeat, sorry, no repeat. So these are like some styles you can apply with background image. So you can always go ahead and explore what it kind of does. Okay, but on a basic level, this is how you apply a background to your HTML page. And yeah, I forgot to tell you about hex color. So right now, whatever we are using is like very basic colors like red, yellow, green, aquamarine, all those things. Yeah, but let's say you want to use a manual color, which is like a color which you want to, like, you have created or something like that, which is not defined in the usual palette of colors. Then you can also use the for hex code for that particular color. And generally, when you will work in your project at that point of time, you'll see that most of the times these special colors are used this with hex code, not with this red, green, blue, etc. So if you want to, I can give you a resource where you can actually find some very good colors. Okay, you can also feel free to explore any other resource where you can get this color. So one place where I generally use to pick a color is this one, materialize color. Click on my colors, materialize. So from here you can you have this color palette and you have this hex code here, right? So you can use this hex code to apply a certain color to your CSS. Let's say I want to apply this this color to my this purple light color to to our, let's say, the span tag, or maybe our background body tag. So we just write this and write a hash at the start. So if you save this now and if you go back to our your page, yeah, you reload this, so this color gets applied. So this is not a color that you generally get, like, because the purple, if you see the normal purple or your deep purple is very different color. Okay. So these are like more like created, these kind of colors are created with a lot of experiments, and they are very easy to see and for the end user, and that's how they are frequently used. So you're free to choose any color from this color palette, or if you want to create any color, you can also do that. You can experiment with the hex code essentially to see how it goes. Apart from this, I think we have mostly covered the first section of CSS. Okay, we will talk about media queries and stuff later on. There are other things also. There's some height width also. Let's say, yeah, I can show you height with image. So we are using an image in our blog, right? This image. So we want to change the height and width of this image. So you can do it with CSS. Since this is image is where is it? So okay, wherever it is, it must be using the img tag, right? So you can use img selector and you can define some height to it. Maybe how much should I give? 150 pixels, let's say. And you can give some width to it. 100 pixels. Click on save, click on this. So now you see this image got resized, right? So similarly, you can increase or decrease the width. If you go click on inspect here, you will see this height is getting applied. What you can do is just select this and press the up arrow key. It will keep increasing the size like this. Similarly, if you want to increase the width, you can just click do up arrow key here. If you want to decrease, you can keep the down arrow key, and that's how it will resize the image. Excuse me. So that's how at a very basic level CSS works. And how you, so what we covered today is like what are selectors, what are different kind of selectors we use. We talked about classes and IDs, and we talked about different styles that we can apply to our HTML page, like color, font family. We can increase the size, we can increase the font weight, we can give some background color to it. We talked about padding, we talked about margins and all those things. So, and this is like in no way a complete introduction to what CSS is. We will cover tomorrow media queries, and then we will cover Flexbox. But even for this very basic styles that we apply, as you can see, whenever you will type here, you will see that there are like lots of different recommendations you get, even for, simple things like, yeah, for example, if you type C, then these are the things. So you can always, kind of experiment with it and see what style is getting applied. You can take help of Google to see what are the different styles that are available. But in general, this is what you are going to use most of the times, most frequently. And maybe in some exceptional cases, you may see some kind of styles that you may not be aware of. So you can always use Google to see how that style works. And what I want you to do in the next class is essentially to use your blog and attach a style sheet to this, just like we did here, like link using this link tag. And after attaching the style sheet, write some CSS code to make it look like more, better. Okay. Yeah, this is in no way better right now, but this is like we did a lot of things on this to just to explain, and that's why. So you can remove this border tags. We can change the font of these paragraphs. We can do a lot of things to make it look good. So I want you to go back to your code, like your individual blocks, apply CSS to them, and see how good you can make an HTML page. And yes, as I said that if you now debugging the CSS, like for example, you might be using Java or any other language. So when you debug there, you use system.out.println just to see what value is coming, okay, and all those things. And so how do you debug this CSS? Okay, so the first rule of thumb is if you are using a div tag or any other tag, like if you're using a p tag, and if you want to know like what is the padding, what is, so for that, just apply a border to it, just to get to know like how much is expands, and then use the div tools. Okay, you just the shortcut is Control Shift and I, or you can also do a right click and click on inspect. So this is the dev tool, and then all you have to do is just select whatever tag you are trying to apply the style to. Yeah, let's say any this is all, yeah, let's say any div tag, and then in the CSS section you can see what style is getting applied to this. Okay, you can see the margins and the paddings from this box here and all those things. So use DevTools. This is very handy for debugging CSS. Okay, and okay, and try to apply the different styles that we learn together, and as well as explore Google and see what more you can do to make your page better. Okay, that's all from today. So if you have got any questions, you can
Somendra,
feel free. Yeah.
why do we need to write all these things in separate style sheet? Why can't we write it in the HTML page directly?
Yeah, it's a good question. So why do we use a separate file? Why can't we write it here within the HTML page only, right? So you can use a style tag here, but now just imagine that within this style tag, you have so many things written. Okay, this entire thing being copied and pasted to this style tag. And just imagine this, how much big your HTML page will become. Okay, and this is totally like, not a very good way, right? The code becomes very dirty. It's more like it's better if you have modularized code, right? That's why I said at the start that you can apply CSS using inline styles, using internal styles like within the style tag or the external style sheet. But most of the times you'll see external style sheets being used. because this makes your code more modular. You have all the design components of your HTML of your document within this CSS page, and the HTML components defined within this HTML page. So you have very clear, kind of distinction between which one is applying the styles, which one is defining the elements. Okay, and also it reduces the size of your code and makes your code look more cleaner. Does it make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, guys? Okay, I think there was this one member who didn't join yesterday. Who was that? Was that Radhika, right? Radhika?
I joined yesterday.
Okay, then who was that? Divya, right? Okay, Divya is not responding some reason. Okay, it was Sheetal, I guess.
Yeah, yesterday I was not there. It's my first session today.
Okay, so Sheetal, so you will have some kind of extra work. So what you have to do is, yesterday I gave them an assessment where what they have to do is like create a blog for yourself. Okay, the blog should contain your name, your hobbies. Okay, you can enlist 3 of them. Okay, it will contain some image, your image, but not like you can take an image from the internet. You can use you provide your strengths and weaknesses. Okay, yeah. So just like how Sadhika showed today in the start of the session, so just create a blog, very simple blog, and then try to apply the styles to this. Okay, using just like we did today in CSS, and then come back to me tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll start talking about the responsiveness of the website. Right now, if you go to our website or our blog, how do we test whether it's responsive or not? All you have to do is click on inspect, and then you see this icon here. So you click on this, and this opens your page in a responsive template. Now, if you go to the bottom, you can see that this is more like this is already responsive. Okay, but you have certain things like here is an example is appearing very, very small. Okay, this thing you can also test it for different devices. Let's say how it's going to look like on maybe on an iPad. Okay, so this is going to look like this. Okay, you can also change the mode, so this way. Okay, you can also check how it's gonna look like on very small devices, let's say iPhone, SC or something. So it's gonna look like this. So as you can see, it's already responsive in nature because we have written the code like that. But we'll talk more about how responsiveness is tomorrow, where we'll talk about the media queries, and we'll see how we can actually use the dimensions, more like an if else kind of a statement where we can use the dimensions of the viewport, and based on that we can define styles. Okay, so for example, if the dimension is small, we are talking about more of a mobile phone or something. And if the dimensions are large, we are talking about desktops. So we apply a different sort of style there. And when the dimensions are small, we apply different sort of style there, more like if-else statements. And then there will be some advanced topics, like for example, CSS variables and stuff. You can even use a variable in CSS to apply styles. We'll talk about that tomorrow, but our focus tomorrow will be on the responsiveness and how we create responsive designs. Okay, so that's all for today. See you guys tomorrow then. Okay. Have a good day. Bye.
Somendra, can I
Yeah.
have just a discussion once with you after everyone close off? Just I want to have just 1 or 2 questions about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. Okay, so everyone else can drop off. Let Sheetal stay on the call.
Thank you so much for Samir, for a wonderful session.